Part 42. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 411. When Lukai heard a knocking sound from the iron cage, he was looking at his palms in trance. The sharp light of the folding knife was faintly revealed between the fingers. Knock. The knuckles of the knuckles tapped against the iron cage, making a crisp sound that was neither high nor low. Lukai froze. Countless possibilities flashed through my mind. He quietly hid the folding knife and then looked up at the source of the sound. It's actually the cage next door on the right. There is a white girl in this cage, tall, like a person from Switzerland and Denmark. The girl said in rather broken English, "Someone help us, escape. After the explosion, find a way to get on the boat." Lukai was a little surprised. The girl thought he didn't understand, so she made famous gestures with her fingers. Make fists with your hands together, then open your palms and spread them out, and make a soft pang sound in your mouth to simulate an explosion. Then, she pointed at herself and Lukai with her index finger, and then made a walking gesture with her index finger and middle finger. Then he pointed to the left side of Lukai, meaning to pass the words to the person on the left. Seeing that Lukai was indifferent, the girl showed an anxious look on her face. Someone really came to save them. Lukai nodded, immediately turned to the other side, and said in fluent English to the person in the cage on his left, "There will be an explosion soon. We have to escape from this room and go to the beach to find a boat and run to the sea. Pass this word on." The girl gave him a thumbs up. The person on the left is an elderly and well-maintained old aunt with good English skills. She did not delay and passed on the words. These people come from all over the world and speak all languages. The so-called wisdom arises out of urgency. The prisoners in the cage racked their brains to find ways to pass on these life-saving words in various languages and with gestures. One by one. Like a passing torch, it ignites the hope of life. It didn't take long for everyone to know that they still had the possibility of escape. Previously, the entire room was filled with deathly despair, as if even the air had stopped flowing. But now, the prisoners are passing on words, igniting hope, and the air is loosening and moving. This kind of flexibility and looseness alarmed the three waiters who were fishing. Waiter A picked up the electric prod, stood up, and moved the electric prod from one side of the cage across the cage one by one until it stopped. He knocked on the cage and said in English, "If you don't want to suffer before you die, just be quiet." This waiter was parked near Lukai. Lukai clutched the folding knife in his hand and stared at the back of the waiter's neck. The back of the neck was very fragile. The knife penetrated into the middle of the spine. The waiter died on the spot without even making a sound. Lukai has dealt with countless animals that were seriously injured and could only wait for death in pain. The human neck is much thinner than the neck of an animal, so it must be very simple to operate. But he couldn't do it now. When will the rescue begin? At this time, there was an explosion very close by. Then it rang several more times. The room's tall windows were illuminated by red and orange firelight. Waiter A looked at the clock on the wall with some confusion and said to himself, "Why are fireworks set off at this time?" Suddenly, all the lights in the room went out, and the hum of the room's exhaust fan stopped. All the electrical appliances in the house stopped working at almost the same time. Includes electronic lock on cage. The lock of the cage made a click sound at the same time, which was the lock tongue leaving the lock hole. Waiter A didn't react until he saw the door of an iron cage open, and a black man jumped out of the cage lightly and stood in front of him. Waiter A immediately took out his electric baton and took a step back. "I warn you, don't act rashly." He didn't finish his sentence. A sharp knife was inserted straight into the back of his neck. The two waiters at the door noticed that something was wrong and took out their walkie-talkies. Before he could call, the iron door of the cage closest to him was suddenly pushed open, and the iron door hit Waiter B hard on the head, making a teeth-shaking dull sound. Waiter C was locked around the neck by a strong man who came out of the cage and twisted hard. All three waiters fell to the ground. The prisoners came out of the cage one after another. Some of them had difficulty with their legs or feet, or were injured, and they were helped out of the cage by people around them. At this moment, they are in the same camp. They could hardly bear the sudden excitement from death to life at this moment. There was the sound of running outside. This allowed the prisoners to regain their composure. They looked around slightly blankly. What's next? Rush out now? Is there any danger outside? After rushing out, where did you run to? They could hear the island becoming noisy, with people shouting in panic, vaguely mixed with shouts in English, "Fire, put out fire. Follow me, everyone. Raid. Everyone on alert. Everyone." A tough and determined man spoke loudly in English from a certain row of cages in the room, "If you want to escape, come with me." The prisoners looked around to see who was speaking. Soon, they saw it. The crowd dispersed automatically, and Su Jingyu strode out. He walked all the way to the electronic iron door of the room. Putting his hand on the door handle, he twisted it down with all the people watching with bated breath. The door opened. The sunlight outside came in through the crack in the door. The soul travels through the 18th line. The female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 412. Su Jingyu turned around and made a pause gesture to everyone. He walked out. Many places on the island were on fire. The waiters were shouting and running around, some holding fire extinguishers in their hands, and they all looked anxious. A little further away, many people in gorgeous clothes, escorted by waiters and mercenaries, walked towards the dock while complaining. No one paid attention to the house where the prisoners were locked up. Su Jingyu turned over and returned to the room, raising his arms, "Everyone, our chance to escape has come. Everyone follow me." He rushed out of the house first and ran in the opposite direction of the dock. A group of prisoners followed behind. Although the prisoners had been starving for 2 whole days, they should have been physically exhausted. But at the critical moment of life and death, the body automatically adjusted to the state of escape. The brain ordered the adrenal medulla to secrete adrenaline, and all the potential of humans was activated in order to survive. The prisoners kicked off their feet and followed Su Jingyu, running quickly. Soon, Su Jingyu passed through the palm trees and saw the sea, the plank road, and the rows of lifeboats that the plank road led to. The speed of human rowing is destined to be not very fast. But now, this is the only chance of survival. They can't go to the dock, where a large number of armed mercenaries gathered. Su Jingyu ran to the beach, and in a dozen steps, he could rush onto the plank road. At this time, he heard a roar from behind, "The prisoners are running away." Su Jingyu didn't even look back and continued to run forward. Puff puff puff. 3 consecutive bullets hit the beach at Su Jingyu's feet. He ran faster, and soon he ran onto the plank road. John Killen and the other person used remote-controlled walking bombs, bombs that can walk on the seabed, to blow up a gap of nearly 20 meters in the deep-sea power grid. Many piranhas immediately ran into the ocean along the gap. However, the guest of room 109 threw the girl into the sea. Many piranhas were still stranded in the shallow sea. The boat that gave up the first guest room, because Su Jingyu was confident of his physical strength, he tried to give the nearby boat people to those who were not physically strong. Chasing behind Su Jingyu was a mercenary patrolling near the palm trees. The mercenary chased with a gun and took out a walkie-talkie. "Hello, W242 calling, requesting support." The walkie-talkie kept making a harsh noise. The walkie-talkie was useless. The mercenary threw the walkie-talkie with a curse and aimed at the prisoners running on the plank road. A prisoner was hit in the thigh, screamed, and fell off the pier. The shadows of black shells rushed towards the people who fell into the water from the bottom of the water. It was the piranhas that smelled the blood and rushed over. The man screamed in fear and paddled hard towards the shore. But it was too late. The piranha bit him. Another one. Then, the water splashed red with blood, blooming on the sea surface. The screams and the terrible sound of teeth biting and hitting bones made people's scalps numb. People fled even more desperately. Su Jingyu had already run to the middle of the pier. He rushed to the guest room next to him, and his fingers were on the rope tied to the lifeboat. At this time, he heard the thump-thump sound of the jet of the motorboat coming from the sea. There were two mercenaries on the speedboat, one responsible for driving the boat and the other responsible for shooting. This was also a routine sea patrol team patrolling around the island. Su Jingyu's heart shuddered. What should I do? There was another pursuer behind, and another motorboat appeared. Even if he got on the lifeboat, what would happen? The mercenary on the motorboat was holding a gun. He obviously recognized Su Jingyu as the leader here, so he pointed the gun at Su Jingyu. The mercenary yelled, "Turn back. Back to your cage. I'll count to 3. 3. Bang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 413. A gunshot was heard very close. The mercenary was shot in the middle of his brow before he could finish his words. The mercenary who was shot was like a stone, falling straight from the motorboat into the sea. Soon, the sea was covered with blood like waves. The piranhas had another meal. Su Jingyu looked in the direction of the gunshot and vaguely saw the curtains on the second floor of a guest room moving. Could it be the man who gave him the note? Who is it? The accomplice was shot dead, and the mercenary in charge of driving the motorboat roared. He stopped the motorboat, stood up, and looked around. A nimble figure, like a cheetah, jumped down from the top of a villa. This was a young Asian man with dark skin from the sun. It was Lu Kai. He jumped onto the motorboat. You. The mercenary driving the boat said only one word, and was kicked into the sea by the man. Before kicking, he also pulled out the gun from his waist. Su Jingyu looked at the young man in surprise. He was also wearing a white suit for prisoners. The young man grabbed the gun, loaded it skillfully, and then aimed it at Su Jingyu. Su Jingyu's mind went blank. Bang. Su Jingyu heard the bullet hit someone not far behind him. He looked back. It was the mercenary who chased him from the beach. Lu Kai's shooting skills were very good, and he shot the mercenary in the heart. The mercenary lay down without a groan. So accurate? Su Jingyu was a little surprised. This tanned Asian actually ran faster than himself. Moreover, he was quite agile. He could climb to the top floor of this small villa with nothing to grab and step on so quickly. Lu Kai was of course fast, agile, and accurate in shooting. In the wild, Lu Kai faced wild animals that were more brutal and faster than humans. Lu Kai often needed to give wild animals anesthetic injections, that is, he used a gun similar to a pistol, the bullet was an anesthetic needle, and aimed at the wild animals to shoot. Because of the need, he often carries a bag weighing dozens of kilograms, chasing animals and treating them. Or he needs to climb a tree, so he goes to the tree to find a place to rest. Lu Kai looked at Su Jingyu and shouted, "Take his gun and get on the motorboat." Su Jingyu immediately turned around, ran to the mercenary lying on the ground, grabbed the gun, and then ran towards Lu Kai. Lu Kai drove the motorboat to the pier, braked suddenly and swung his tail, just stopping very close to Su Jingyu. Su Jingyu looked at the direction, jumped, and landed steadily behind the motorboat. Lu Kai frowned and pointed to the distance, "More pursuers are coming." The shooting here aroused the vigilance of the people on the island, and several mercenaries were sent to check the situation. At this moment, most of the prisoners were still untying the ropes of the lifeboat. Piranhas were anxiously circling below. Su Jingyu was anxious. If the mercenaries came at this moment, these people would become living targets. If you can jump into the sea, you can still avoid bullets. But there are piranhas in the water. Su Jingyu saw a bundle of ropes at his feet, which were obviously used to tie the motorboat, and he had an idea in his mind. He pointed at the mercenaries who were about to run up the plank road and shouted, "Drive towards them." Lu Kai immediately turned the motorboat around and rushed to the far side of the plank road. Su Jingyu took advantage of this time to bend down and pick up the bundle of ropes used to tie the boat on the boat, and swung it in the air. This action is very similar to the action of men on the grassland catching horses. But Su Jingyu didn't catch a horse, but a mercenary. This is one of the necessary skills for deep-sea divers. They need to overcome the resistance of the sea water in the sea, and put the rope on the reef and the big fish swimming fast. Swoosh! The rope hit the mercenary in front, and Su Jingyu pulled the mercenary into the water with a force on his waist, and then loosened the rope. Lu Kai raised his gun in tacit understanding and successfully shot the other two mercenaries who were approaching. "Go around the pier twice, and then drive away," Su Jingyu shouted. Lu Kai immediately understood what he wanted to do. Without hesitation, Lu Kai stepped on the throttle and drove the motorboat around the pier. The speed was extremely fast. The piranhas shared the three people. Not only did they not eat enough, but they were hungry. The mercenary hanging behind the motorboat was like a huge bait. But because the motorboat was very fast, it was difficult for the piranhas to catch up. They could only follow their motorboat and try hard to bite the mercenary who was dragged in the sea with the rope. At this moment, a very strange scene was staged in the sea. The motorboat dragged people and galloped quickly in the sea, followed by a large group of piranhas with gnashing teeth. Almost all the piranhas were hooked and chased after the motorboat. Su Jingyu shouted, "Drive one last lap, and then drive far over there." Su Jingyu pointed to the sea in the distance. Lu Kai circled back again. More and more mercenaries appeared on the beach. When approaching the plank road, Su Jingyu made a trumpet shape with his hands and shouted in English, "When we leave, there will be no piranhas in the sea. Everyone jump into the sea to avoid bullets." Lu Kai then drove the motorboat and sped away. Groups of piranhas followed behind. The motorboat passed the broken electric fence, and the piranhas swam into the sea and then scattered. The shallows were safe. The prisoners immediately jumped into the sea. Those who could swim swam to the house, untied the boat, and approached the pier to pick up those who could not swim. Su Jingyu held the motorboat tightly and looked back. 1, 2, 3. The boats carrying the escapees appeared one after another. The boats followed the motorboat and rushed to the wider sea. The soul travels through the 18th line. The female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 414. A fleet of ships, like a school of swimming fish, merged into the sea without looking back. The rest depends on themselves. John Killen lowered the curtains and put his gun on his back. The mercenaries on the beach jumped and cursed helplessly, looking at the fleet leaving in the distance. At this moment, Golden Island was in chaos. The bombs placed by Nolan were very clever. Not all of them exploded at once. After the first explosion of the explosives, the flammable gas accumulated in the house was ignited. This explosion was the most violent, and the whole island shook. Then, the flammable gas, wrapped in flames, rushed into the sky. Those who were unaware of the island thought that an army was attacking. The remaining 3 bombs exploded in sequence. Each one was 5 to 10 minutes apart. It gave people the illusion that the terrorist attack was still going on. The ceiling fans and air conditioners stopped working, the lights went out, the TV screens went out. It was like the end of the world. Modern people are too dependent on electronic devices. If there is a power outage, all electronic devices will be scrapped, and you will feel as helpless as a newborn baby. Not to mention such a group of wealthy and powerful people who live a life of luxury. The panicked guests screamed and ran around like headless flies. This made it more difficult for the island employees and mercenaries to rescue them. People who take human life lightly often cherish their lives very much. The captain of the security team of Golden Island shouted loudly. "Don't panic, everyone. Please follow our employees and line up to the dock. All employees. Protect our guests." It was difficult to calm their emotions, and the guests finally followed the employees in an orderly manner, walking towards the dock with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. At this time, gunshots were heard on the other side of the island. The guests immediately lost their composure again. Report. The prisoners escaped from prison. A mercenary ran over breathlessly to report. The captain of the island security team frowned. Take a few more people and go over there to take a look. Find 2 more motorboats. A female guest interrupted the captain with dissatisfaction. The situation is unclear now, and terrorists may attack at any time. You must use all your manpower to protect our safety. Another guest said, don't send a motorboat. In case of problems with the cruise ship, we can still use motorboats to protect us. That's right, motorboats can also be used as a maritime protection force. We are all on the cruise ship, and motorboats can patrol around to protect us. A bunch of untouchables, just run away. How far can they run? After ensuring our safety, it's not too late to chase them. The captain of the security team wiped his sweat. These dignitaries have noble status. A word from them can decide the life and death of his family, and he can't afford to offend any of them. And, he personally thinks that the untouchables will run away. Besides, where can they run to by rowing with their hands? Once they gather a team of speedboats, it will only take a few minutes to catch up with them. So, the captain of the security department shouted into the intercom, everyone listen, be sure to protect our guests. Don't chase the prisoners. Repeat, go to the beach immediately and protect our guests to evacuate safely. Don't chase the prisoners. Just like that, the people of Golden Island gave up chasing the fugitives. This one precious time for Su Jingyu and his team to escape. In the chaotic scene, the housekeepers were also looking for the guests they were responsible for. Except for the Sunrise Villa and the Sunset Villa, each villa was assigned a housekeeper, and the other rooms were assigned a housekeeper for 5 rooms. Lucas was also responsible for the guests in 5 rooms. He was busy at the scene, and he wiped the sweat from his forehead until most of the guests got on the yacht, looking for John Killen and Nolan. He anxiously dialed the intercom of room 106, which was John Killen's room. No one answered. Did something happen? Or were they playing in the guest room and didn't hear the intercom? Or did they forget the intercom in the guest room? After Lucas settled the other guests, he hurried towards the guest room. Nolan stood by the window, looking at the East Pier. Lucas will be here in 3 minutes at most, Nolan asked. Mr. L, are you sure you don't want to send a distress message to the International Rescue Team? The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 415. Thanks to the strict self-defense of Golden Island, there will be no eavesdropping equipment in the water within a radius of 20 kilometers. When the power is cut off, the signal jammer will also fail. John Killen and Nolan immediately turned on their phones to send messages. The 2 people were about 5 meters apart, guarding against each other. After John Killen sent his message, he thought for a moment and said to Nolan, don't ask for help from the outside world. Nolan was very skeptical, those prisoners can't run too far? If Golden Island is settled, they will definitely catch them as soon as possible. If, John Killen said, The international rescue team also has their people. Su Jingyu and others who escaped will encounter terrible things. Moreover, with Su Jingyu and Lu Kai, they have a very high chance of survival. John Killen now can't trust anyone. Even internationally certified institutions. No, especially those internationally certified institutions. Most institutions serve the rich and powerful. That's right. That would be like sending the sheep that just escaped back to the wolf pack, and we might be exposed. Nolan agreed. His pair of blue eyes stared at John Killen. Who did you send a message to just now? John Killen cleared the messages he had sent, then turned off the phone and put it back in his pocket. Then he slowly said, "What about you? Who did you send a message to again?" Unexpectedly, Nolan showed his phone to John Killen without any hesitation. Mission failed. Golden Island encountered a dangerous attack, and the auction transaction could not proceed according to the normal process. The recipient is a capital letter, T. If the mission fails, Nolan will be deducted some money or vacation at most. Only when the mission is completed will it be fatal. I have shown you my message, and you have to show me your message too, Nolan said. John Killen sneered, "Did I agree? Are you a kindergarten kid? You are still playing the game of exchanging secrets. Hey, buddy, you are not nice enough, right?" Nolan pretended to be angry. John Killen stared at him. "You also have a secret from me. When we acted separately, what else did you do besides planting the bomb? Did you secretly check the Forbidden Red House?" Nolan's smile was still there, but the smile in his eyes was gone. "Mr. L, are you always so sharp?" Nolan said slowly. John Killen snorted, "You don't have to flatter me. If you want to join forces with me, you'd better not hide the secrets of my island." Nolan's face was gloomy. "I can't confirm your identity. So, I can only keep it secret from you." The atmosphere was a little tense for a while. Just then, the door was knocked. The two looked at each other, put away their calmness and composure, and hurriedly went down the stairs. Thump thump, and opened the door. Lucas looked at the two people from head to toe, and made sure that they were intact, so he breathed a sigh of relief. He thought the two had encountered terrorists or fleeing prisoners. Except for two people who looked terrified, it was obvious that they were frightened by the explosion and gunshots. "Did we encounter a terrorist attack? Why didn't you send someone to pick us up? There are many gangsters on the plank road. The gangsters have guns and bombs." The two shouted at Lucas. Lucas was confused. The guests on the beach had the same reaction as the two in front of him. So, he could only show 12 points of patience and explain gently, "Don't worry, we are safe at present, please follow me immediately." Asterisk. Amos suppressed his anger. His hand holding the microphone trembled slightly. "If you have such a mission, why don't you tell me? Send it directly to the H-Rangers," Amos roared. "The H-Rangers is my private property. And I am also a member of the Freemasons. Why did the Freemasons bypass me and hand the mission to my H-Rangers?" The other party, Nolan's mission person, the big boss T, Francisco defended, "Because this task itself is not difficult. It's just taking a card to buy a videotape, and there will be no danger. Therefore, the marked task level is D. I originally thought that the H-Rangers would definitely assign this level of task to marginal members. Who knew that the captain of the H-Rangers would actually complete the shrimp task himself? There are two ways for the H-Rangers to accept tasks. One is the task directly assigned by the US government and Amos. The second is the task in the open task library. Although the H-Rangers are Amos's private property, Amos opened the H-Rangers to Masons members in order to sell favors. Masons members can throw the tasks that are clean on the surface into the task library of the H-Rangers. The H-Rangers will regularly clean up the tasks in the task library to ensure that there are no expired or forgotten tasks. It's just that they don't know where the tasks in the task library come from. The tasks in the task library are divided into 7 levels of difficulty: D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSS. From D to SSS, the difficulty increases in order. Generally speaking, the captain or vice captain will only accept tasks with difficulty above a level. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 416. Do you know how difficult it is to train an excellent captain? Amos was angry and distressed. I just lost an excellent captain, and now I have to lose another one. Francisco said, that can only mean that your new captain is not very lucky. Amos received a call from Francisco and said that he wanted to get rid of Nolan. After asking the reason, Amos was definitely unwilling. Captain Nolan is very valuable. Not to mention how much trouble Nolan can solve and how much direct or indirect benefits he can create for himself, but from the point that he can make the members of the H-Rangers obedient, it is very rare. Chen Ling's death has a great impact on the mentality of the existing H-Rangers. Now, only Nolan can make these members obedient. Amos strives, although the gameplay of Golden Island is a bit expensive, as long as I order Nolan not to disclose secrets, he will not disclose secrets. Amos is still very confident in Nolan's loyalty. Amos, Francisco's voice turned cold, what's Golden Island? Even if their gameplay is exposed to the world, what can they do? Spend money to suppress it, control the search terms, or at worst let the official release news to prove that it is fake news. This kind of news is not popular and can be suppressed quickly. The torture and killing on Golden Island does challenge the nerves of modern civilized people. But in the final analysis, it's just a small-scale fight. But the content of the videotape is different. Then why must Nolan's life be taken? Amos raised his voice, could it be that videotape? Francisco didn't say anything. It was equivalent to acquiescence. Amos was a little desperate, what exactly is in that videotape? No comment, Francisco said. Amos also tore his face, then you can't get rid of Nolan unless you give me a reasonable explanation. After a moment of silence, Francisco slowly said, what is the highest doctrine of the Masonic order? To achieve the great cleansing of mankind and improve the genes of the human race. Amos' words came to an abrupt end. Amos slowly widened his eyes. Could it be that the president wants to start? Francisco did not answer Amos's question. Because his mobile phone received a message. It was a message from the quasi-dead Captain Nolan. Why did Nolan send a message? Shouldn't he be on the Golden Island at this moment? The Golden Island is completely closed and cannot be connected to the external network, then how did he send a message to himself? Amos waited for Francisco's answer, but the other party did not respond for a long time. Francisco, Amos called him. Well. Amos, guess what happened? Francisco opened his mobile phone to check the text message. Your captain sent me a message. Impossible. Golden Island cannot contact the outside world. Amos and Francisco had the same first reaction, what is the message? He said, mission failed. Golden Island encountered a dangerous attack, and the auction transaction could not proceed according to the normal process. Francisco read Nolan's message, Amos, wait a moment, I need to contact Golden Island to verify. Amos hung up the phone. Not long after, Francisco called. Amos immediately asked, what happened? Francisco said, today's auction has been cancelled. It is said that there was an explosion in the diesel generator room of Golden Island. We don't know the specific circumstances of the incident at present, and the accident is being investigated. It is possible that the explosion was caused by an accident in the machine itself, or it is possible that someone deliberately sabotaged it. The VIPs of Golden Island are all on the yacht and are on their way back to country Y. And all the prisoners on the island have escaped. Amos repeated in surprise, they all escaped? Where can they escape to? Can't we just catch them? They are contacting the search team 5, speedboats, helicopters, but Golden Island doesn't want to make a big fuss about this, so the search team is very small. Moreover, they also contacted neighboring countries, such as Haiti and Cuba, and asked them to help capture. Francisco rubbed his eyebrows and continued. These are not the main points. The main point is, the videotape. I don't want to make a big fuss about it, the auctioneer doesn't know the value of the videotape yet. Amos said hi, then just pay more and buy it directly from the auctioneer. Doesn't that mean telling the auctioneer how important the videotape in his hand is? Francisco thought Amos was stupid. Amos used to be quite wise, but why is he going backwards now? Amos was particularly curious about the content of the videotape at this moment. Francisco continued to explain, the owner of the videotape just thinks the torture method in the videotape is very exciting, he doesn't know what is recorded in the videotape. It seems that he is not going to reveal the content of the videotape. Amos pouted. But now, there is no need to get rid of Nolan, right? Amos said in a brisk tone. If Nolan died, he really didn't know who to find to be the captain. Francisco just said that Nolan was unlucky. Unexpectedly, the Golden Island, which had never had any accidents, was bombed. People's sorrows and joys cannot be communicated. Hearing that the auction was cancelled, Amos was very happy, but Francisco had a headache. The videotape was leaked from his hands. He must hurry to get it back. What if the content leaked? Or, what if the president knew about this? There is no need to get rid of Nolan, Francisco rubbed his temple and reminded, don't tell anyone about the videotape. This is an order. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 417. The world's top super yachts are unimaginably luxurious. The Thetis, the yacht that the Golden Island VIPs boarded at this moment, is such a world-class luxury yacht with 5 floors. The Thetis cost as much as $300 million and can accommodate 60 guests and 72 crew members. The owner of this yacht is a mysterious Cuban tycoon who does not want to reveal his identity. It was rented to Golden Island because of a personal relationship. The yacht is not only equipped with a helicopter landing platform, but also a swimming pool made of explosion-proof glass to view the underwater world, a small concert hall, where you can enjoy live orchestra symphony performances, a large conference room, a gym, and a jacuzzi in each room. It is more luxurious than most 5-star hotels. Lucas brought John Killen and Nolan to the Thetis. The two did not speak all the way. When they arrived in front of the yacht, they raised their legs to get on. Please wait a moment, Lucas spoke, and he took a small suitcase from the waiter next to him and opened it. There were 39 masks of various styles in the room. Some looked like those worn at masquerade balls, some were outlined with gorgeous golden lines, some were decorated with black lace, and some were pure white and looked a bit scary. Please choose a mask, both of you, Lucas said. John Killen reached out and took away a bronze Roman-style mask, covering his face tightly. Nolan took away another pure white mask with curved eyes. While the two were choosing masks, Lucas confirmed the room for John Killen and the others with the waiter on the boat. He stood aside, and waited until both of them put on their masks before bending down and extending his right hand to invite. Both of you, please follow me. Humans are creatures dedicated to grading things. From the earth to a yacht. Yacht rooms are divided into 3 levels. The highest level rooms are large, with more complete facilities, located on the upper level of the yacht, and there is also a public activity platform with a wide view. The middle level is smaller. The lower level has the smallest area. Of course, Even the smallest lower-level room has an independent and spacious jacuzzi. Golden Island has its own set of judgment logic criteria, and it divides guests into first, second, and third class. When he first boarded the ship, a pretentious VIP was led to the third-class room. He was very dissatisfied and started to make a fuss. As a result, a VIP in the middle second class heard someone making a fuss, came out to watch for a while, walked to the troublemaker, and took off the mask on his face. The VIP who made trouble just took a look at the face under the mask and immediately became weak. He stopped and honestly returned to his third-class room. Thanks to Mr. T, John Killen and Nolan went to the second-class room. John Killen wore a mask and combined the information he got from Nolan in his mind while walking. Nolan said that the person who assigned him the task was a German car manufacturer. Germany, car manufacturer, enjoy the second-class room, capital T. John Killen guessed the true identity of this big guy. Francisco, a car manufacturer. The car manufacturing group he works for not only manufactures cars, but also various types of military weapons, such as tanks, armored vehicles, 88mm anti-aircraft guns, submarine engines, and so on. What kind of shameful videotapes would be circulated by such a person? Lucas interrupted his thoughts. You two, we have arrived at your room. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 418. Opening the door, a faint and fresh fruity aroma wafted out. There was a full wall of French windows in front of me. The room was spacious and bright, with white wooden floors and luxurious appliances. Perhaps because of the fear of wind and waves, there were not too many decorations. There were many abstract paintings with colorful lines on the wall, which matched the style of the room very well. Ladies and gentlemen, after we verify the number of people, the yacht will set off to take you to country Y. If you want to go to countries around the Caribbean Sea, such as country G or country H, you can tell me and I will tell the captain. Can it also be sent to country G? John Killen's heart was moved. However, now is not the time to consider this. Well, we will tell you after we have considered it, Nolan said. Then I'm sorry to bother you. There is a landline in the room. If you need it, dial 0 to transfer to the service desk. You can ask the crew to provide service, or you can Lucas bowed and retreated, closing the door. The two people resumed their previous confrontation. There was silence in the room for a long time. Seeing that John Killen was not going to speak, Nolan took the initiative. Mr. L, Nolan looked at John Killen, who was standing a few steps away from him. How do you know Chen Ling? John Killen. The hair on the back of his neck exploded silently. He quickly recalled whether he had revealed any flaws. No. He had just sent a text message to Chen Ling. But her note was a simple period. He had never revealed any information about Chen Ling in his words. Seeing that John Killen didn't speak, Nolan didn't force it. Nolan shrugged, turned, and walked into the living room, leaned on the sofa, put his hands on the sofa, and looked up at the ceiling. How should I put it? I am happy that you don't reveal that you know Captain Chen Ling, but I also feel troubled. John Killen's shoulders relaxed. He said, Captain Chen Ling. It's not that Chen Ling was exposed. Nolan said, I am happy because you are keeping the captain's secret. I am troubled because I have to find a way to pry your mouth open. Because I am very curious about why you know each other. How about this, let's make a deal. You tell me how you know her, and I will tell you what I found in the Red House. John Killen continued to be silent. He had no way to tell Nolan how he met Chen Ling. The Chen Ling he knew and the Chen Ling Nolan knew were not exactly the same person. Nolan raised his eyebrows and looked at John Killen. John Killen was like a sculpture, standing motionless at the door. Nolan sighed. Are you very curious about how I found out? John Killen looked at him and nodded gently. Nolan took out a small steel knife from his pocket and placed it on the coffee table in front of him. John Killen understood immediately. The small steel knife was taken out of Chen Ling's toy house. Maybe there are some special traces or characteristics. And Nolan happened to know that the small steel knife belonged to her. She has a very small hobby, which is collecting weapons. We joked in private and called her the squirrel who hides weapons. The captain always does things meaningfully. We guessed that she should have built a safe house somewhere so that she could take out weapons in case of any special situation. I had nothing to do, so I helped her collect a large box of high-tech weapons and gave them to her. In the end, she refused. She said, "These weapons have codes and marks. I don't want them." She might. "You don't even trust me, do you?" She only feels at ease when she finds the weapons herself. But, what a coincidence, one time I was on a mission and went to Switzerland. There is a factory in Switzerland that makes super A-grade cold steel Swiss Army knives. The A-grade boss is a retired employee of Cold Steel, and the knives made are no different from Cold Steel. When I went to seize this batch of knives, it happened that a batch of knives were produced, and there was no time to label and stamp them. So I gave this box of knives to her. She finally accepted it. Nolan played with the knives. You don't have to think about how to refute me. The folding knife you gave to the prisoner was also among them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 419. The ship shook. The yacht started moving. John Killen finally moved. He left the entrance hall, came to the living room, sat on the single sofa, and calmly looked at Nolan, who was sitting in the middle of the three-person sofa on his right. "We met by chance," John Killen said. "The location was the MH war zone. She rescued many ordinary people in the war zone and also sent a lot of supplies. The MH war zone is the war zone where John Killen's mother Jichenjia once stayed. This is also where Chen Ling first rescued Jichenjia." John Killen was very clever and did not say, "I met Chen Ling there." Just throw out the location and what Chen Ling did at that time. Nolan will figure out the rest of the information. At this moment, the less John Killen said, the lower the possibility of making mistakes. Nolan was obviously not that satisfied with John Killen's answer. But after just half a day of contact, he had a certain understanding of John Killen's character. This man has a very strict mouth. I'm afraid it will be almost impossible to get any useful information out of his mouth. In the MH theater, many countries sent their own soldiers to support out of humanitarian considerations. Presumably Mr. I was a peacekeeping soldier sent by China, and he met Chen Ling by chance. Nolan's expression softened a little. "Then do you know who I am to her?" Nolan asked. "Who is she? Why does this sentence sound so harsh?" John Killen said in his heart. "Team members." "Her team members," John Killen said. "So, you don't need to be so wary of me," Nolan said. "Who was the text message you just sent to?" John Killen considered his words. "My leader." His father is his leader. Chen Ling can also be regarded as his leader. Therefore, he is not lying. "What about the content?" John Killen frowned slightly, and finally said slowly, "Let my leader pay attention to whether there are any rich and powerful people in our country who are currently surrounding country Y. It seems that you should belong to the government department," Nolan said keenly. "To be honest, I admire you very much for formulating such a rigorous plan in such a short period of time. Moreover, your greatest advantage is that you know people well and are good at assigning tasks." Su Jingyu and Lu Kai joined forces. The two of them took great credit for the prisoners being able to escape. However, it was John Killen who made the greater contribution. No matter how strong a person is, his power is limited. The most powerful ones are those who can mobilize existing resources and talents to lead the collective to maximize interests. Your country is lucky to have talents like you, Nolan concluded. Thank you for your recognition. John Killen thanked him perfunctorily. I have answered the questions you raised, and now it is your turn to tell me, what exactly did you see in the Red House? Butler Lucas is right, the Red Room is indeed used to house the auction items, Nolan said. I originally wanted to try my luck to see if I could find the videotape I needed to auction. But I couldn't get in. There was someone in the house. John Killen waited for him to continue. Mr. L, do you know God's eye? John Killen folded his fingers and looked at Nolan. Nolan's expression became very solemn. You need to be more specific. Are you referring to the all-seeing eye on the back of the American dollar, or to the famous celestial body in the universe, or to the Masonic symbol? The symbol of the Freemasonry, Nolan said. I saw 3 people in the house through the crack of the window, kneeling before a gold handicraft and muttering something. The sound insulation effect of the house was very good, so I couldn't hear exactly what they said. John Killen asked, what does that gold handicraft look like? Nolan replied, it is the symbol of the Freemasonry, a golden sun with an eye embedded in the middle. The eyeball is made of sapphire and sparkles. The Freemasonry people believe that they are like God and can understand all secrets. So, the symbol of the Freemasonry, also called the Eye of God. I originally wanted to look at it for a while, but I picked up something. Then, Nolan put his hand into his pocket and pulled out a metal product as big as half a palm. The metal product was spread out in his palm and handed to John Killen. This badge looks very old, full of the vicissitudes of time. It can be seen that the owner of the badge cherishes it very much. Many of the patterns carved on it have been blurred by wiping them with silk scarves. A serial number is engraved on the back, I-1981-03-06. The craftsmanship of the badge is extremely exquisite, the blue gemstone and some kind of light brown stone are perfectly combined, and the eyes are lifelike. If you stare at the eyeball for a while, you will have the illusion that the eyeball is actually alive. Where did you pick up this badge? John Killen asked, staring at the badge. On the sand by the steps outside the Red House, Nolan said. The sunlight shines on it, reflecting a strange luster. This is something from the United Economic Association, John Killen said in a declarative sentence. Yeah. I think so too, Nolan said. The two stared at the badge. Look at the craftsmanship, this is no ordinary item. If its owner found out that such a valuable thing was lost, he would definitely be very anxious. Before John Killen finished speaking, he heard noisy sounds coming from outside the corridor. The door of the next room opened. I didn't ask you to come, what are you doing? Why did you enter my room? The people in the room soon protested, and the lady screamed. What are you looking for? Your behavior is barbaric and rude. This is a violation of human rights. I am worth hundreds of billions of dollars, would I steal anything from you? John Killen and Nolan looked at each other. The owner came to look for something. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 420. Nolan's expression was calm. John Killen suddenly realized. He looked at Nolan speechlessly. You guessed that they would search, that's why you told me, right? After all, we are in the same boat now, Nolan made a pun. At this time, there was a knock on their door. Nolan placed the badge in his palm. Turning over my hand again, the badge was gone. Turning over his hand again, the badge appeared in his palm again. Such quick hand speed, John Killen said to himself, but can you use your hand speed to avoid being searched under the eyes of others? Nolan blinked at John Killen, and then opened the door. 4 people were standing outside the door. There were 3 people who could be identified as bodyguards at a glance. They were wearing black suits, without masks, and looked fierce. Behind them was a young man with fair hair wearing a black lace mask. He is very tall, nearly 1.9 meters tall, very thin, with a slight stoop in his back. Wearing a pretentious black tuxedo, it looked to be made of good material. Ahem. He held a silk handkerchief in his hand, covered his mouth, and coughed twice. Still a sick man. John Killen noticed that there was a ring on the little finger of his right hand holding the silk handkerchief. A ring set with a huge emerald stone. Nolan pretended to be stunned for a moment, and then asked, "Are you?" "Step aside." The three bodyguards didn't give Nolan a chance to finish his words. They roughly pushed Nolan to one side of the entrance and rushed directly into the room. The man with light blonde hair walked in behind the bodyguard and closed the door behind him. Beep. Each bodyguard holds a handheld scanner in his hand. From the moment you enter the house, you are trained to scan every corner of the house. Even the lights on the walls and ceiling were not spared. Can badges be detected? John Killen prepared for the worst. Sooner or later they will scan themselves and Nolan. Nolan, no matter how fast you are, you can't avoid the detection of the instrument. If it really doesn't work, you have to fight hard. John Killen couldn't help but feel anxious. He glanced at Nolan. It doesn't matter if you don't look at it. John Killen's hair stood up at the sight. Nolan was one step behind the blonde man. At this moment, he actually reached out and stuffed the badge into the young man's pocket. Seeing John Killen looking over, he winked at him. Too bold. But after a little thought, John Killen discovered that this was actually the best way to avoid being searched. Those bodyguards wouldn't search their master's body, would they? Moreover, Nolan's timing was very good. He placed the badge when the blonde man was coughing. When you cough, your body trembles slightly, your waist, abdomen, and chest tighten, making you insensitive to external stimuli. Many pickpockets steal things when others are coughing. There were not many places to hide things in the house, so they were all searched quickly. 3 bodyguards held instruments and stood in front of the man with light yellow hair. The 3 of them shook their heads. "Search his backpack." The man with blonde hair pointed at John Killen and said in a very pure and old-fashioned London accent. John Killen didn't waste any time, just took off his backpack and put it on the ground. A bodyguard stepped forward and opened the zipper. A backpack of weapons was exposed to everyone's view. However, the 3 bodyguards and the man with light yellow hair were not surprised at all. It seems that there are many guests with weapons. Search them both. John Killen and Nolan raised their arms in cooperation, letting them scan up and down. The bodyguard shook his head again. The blonde man held a handkerchief and coughed again. After coughing, he looked at John Killen and Nolan and asked, "Don't you two resist?" Nolan snorted, "If you resist, you won't search us? Besides, we're not afraid of searches, so why bother causing trouble?" "Then don't you ask what we are searching for," the man with light yellow hair asked. "If I ask, will you answer?" "What if you answer and want to silence us again?" Nolan said. The man with light yellow hair snorted coldly, and then waved his hand holding the handkerchief, indicating that he could evacuate. The bodyguards walked to the door and opened it. Nolan followed them as if to see them out. His hand reached into the blonde man's pocket. Suddenly, the man with light blonde hair turned around. Nolan reacted very quickly, changing the direction of his hand halfway and heading straight for his nose. "Akio!" Nolan sneezed. The man with light blonde hair covered his nose with a silk scarf in disgust, and said in a sullen voice, "If you find or pick up any special jewelry, you must tell the housekeeper in time. If the thing is not found in the end, I will let this." Everyone in the boat was buried with him. After saying the harsh words, he turned around. Nolan didn't hesitate this time, stretched out his hand and took out the badge. John Killen thought to himself, if this person becomes a magician after retirement, he will definitely be very successful.